Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. We have an important show for you today on two different topics. There's a lot of debate out there whether or not the keto diet works for bodybuilders or people who want to have great physiques. Obviously, we're talking about building and maintaining muscle. And we're going to be joined by my guest today, Adam Sir, in just a moment to talk about a recent paper that his group published just on this specific topic. Later in the show, we're going to be joined by Leslie Burke. Macular degeneration is a big problem in the U.S. and probably globally, too. It's estimated that currently about 11 million people suffer from it, and about 22 million will suffer from it by the year 2050. And doctors say it can't be cured. It's a degenerative disease that continues down a bad path. That may no longer be true. We're going to give you some insights. If you or someone you know have retinal damage due to macular degeneration, I think we have a good story to tell you today. But before we do any of that, we have to thank my title sponsor, Legendary Foods. I'm wearing their shirt today. I love it. Like, why don't I have any Legendary shirts? EatLegendary.com is the website. SHR is the code. Save 10% off. If you're a low-carb guy like me, you're going to love Legendary Foods. Especially their Pop-Tart, which is actually called a tasty pastry. But it looks like a Pop-Tart, tastes like a Pop-Tart. But the difference is it has less than 1 gram of sugar, less than 3 to 4 impact carbs, 9 grams of high-quality, high-leucine protein. So if you're somebody who cares about your macros, you'll love Legendary Foods and their tasty pastry. And now I will bring my guest on, Adam Sir. How you doing, Adam?
I'm doing quite well, and I'm very happy to be on the show, Carl. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here, actually. So you're joining us today from all the way from Norway, right?
Yeah, I am. I'm Norwegian. You know, many people think that I am American because my name does sound a bit American, but I'm actually from Norway, but working with American researchers and so on.
Right. And recently, you worked with American researchers looking at the ever-popular ketogenic diet, because there's always this debate going on. Keto is good for this, keto is not good for that. And there's been a lot of people who have said that keto really isn't any good if you're a bodybuilder. There's lots of discussion. I'm sure we're going to have questions. If you want to ask questions, feel free to post your questions. Nothing is off topic here. And before we get into the discussion, we really do have to thank, or at least recognize, your co-author, Brandon Roberts, who worked with you on this research, correct?
Yes, Brandon Roberts is we've been working together for, I believe it's 3 years now, and he's an excellent researcher from the University of Alabama at Birmingham.
Okay. And anybody who posts questions, we will answer every question. We will address every question and comment. But you have to give us a chance to let the discussion unfold, so to speak. So let's first talk about your research. Why this research? What discussions preceded this that required you to look at this topic?
Sure. So I have to give you some background first on the site that I've been running. So I started a website in 2016 called scifit.net, sci-fit.net, and it's the science of fitness, right? And on this site, we review literature. It's like an international collaboration of researchers from all over the world where we look at topics like hypertrophy, strength, and the ketogenic diet, and other diets as well. So in 2017, we started doing reviews on the ketogenic diet. For example, reviews on how it affects hunger, or how it affects performance, athletic performance. And in 2019, we were Brad Schoenfeld. He asked us to write a paper for him in the Strength and Conditioning Journal about the ketogenic diet for bodybuilders, because he wanted to publish an issue that's about bodybuilding, that's unique to that. So we are bringing in the perspective of the ketogenic diet here, and to evaluate how good is it for bodybuilding, what are the potential benefits, and what are the potential downsides of the diet. So that's like the background for how the paper was written.
So interestingly enough, 35 years ago, Dr. Mauro Di Pasquale, which I know everybody has a lot of respect for that's in this category, who knows who he is, wrote a book called The Anabolic Diet. And the anabolic diet was basically 5 days a week of strict keto, and then 2 days a week of introducing carbohydrates back into the diet. He called it the phase shift keto diet, is what he called it back then, ketogenic diet. And a lot of athletes built a lot of muscle using that diet. So today we people are strict keto, like carbohydrates are evil. I no carbs. I don't want to be kicked out of ketosis, which I think is an amusing idea. What are we missing? What did we learn today that Dr. Di Pasquale didn't understand yesterday?
So it seems like he did a cyclical diet, right? Where he had periods of high carb and periods of low carb, and he didn't focus too much on the ketones, if I'm understanding it correctly, right? So
I guess you could say that. I mean, he knew that his athletes were producing ketones throughout the week, but it wasn't like, today we have test our urine, test our breath, test our blood. Oh, I'm at the 2.2 millimoles. I don't think that they were doing that back then, obviously.
Yeah, so it's very easy to get stuck on a specific number. For example, your blood ketone levels, and you can say, okay, I have to be at that level or else I'm failing the diet. But I think that's definitely not a good perspective, because even though ketosis can have many benefits, it is not an issue if you go out and back into ketosis. I'm not too familiar with this author, but he's definitely correct in that bodybuilders can gain mass and can use the ketogenic diet in their training regimen or as a diet. So what we wanted to look at in the paper was how effective is this? Like if you compare, for example, a low-fat diet that's like high carb, low fat, compared to a ketogenic diet, which is high fat, low carb. We wanted to see, when we reviewed the literature, we wanted to see what does that say as a whole, like which diet would be better for bodybuilders, and also how useful is the ketogenic diet. So do you want me to summarize the findings?
Well, I want you to summarize, but explain to the audience, first of all, how this study was designed. This was kind of like a meta-analysis, right?
Yeah, it was like a review. So we reviewed the literature, like Science of Fitness. We've been working on the ketogenic diet for 3 years now. So we reviewed most of the aspects of the ketogenic diet. So what this paper was, it was a distillation, right? Where we took all the results from the various reviews and we kind of summarized it for bodybuilders in this review paper. So it was a lot of, we had, I believe we have like 200 citations or something along those lines.
Wow. That's a pretty big group of papers to consolidate. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about what you found. What did you learn?
Sure. So we have many aspects here. We looked at, I can tell a bit about what we actually looked at here in the diet. So we looked at, first we looked at the basics, things like macronutrients. For example, people say that you need to eat low protein to be in ketosis. So we looked at that. We looked at hunger. How does the keto affect hunger, and how does that affect bodybuilders? Performance, strength in the gym, hypertrophy, how it affects muscle mass, and also things like fat loss. How is it better for fat loss, or is it similar to other diets? And we also looked at things like side effects. For example, when you start the diet, you will experience some side effects, and we wanted to see how you could prevent those side effects, because those can be very detrimental to bodybuilders. Before a show, you can't have a lot of negative side effects when you're starting a new diet. And we also evaluated ketone supplements. For example, ketone supplements have in their marketing said that they will burn your fat, or they will make you stronger or faster. So we wanted to see if ketone supplements can be useful for bodybuilders.
Did you look only at ketone salts, or did you look at ketone esters as well?
Ketone salts and ketone esters.
Now, and did you look at the Veach ester specifically?
No, we didn't differentiate between the different esters or the different salts. Like we reviewed them as a whole. I believe there are about 16 papers now. However, most of them are for endurance athletes and not for, there are no studies for ketone supplements on bodybuilders specifically. But I think you raised an important question, because different esters can have different effects on different people. So it's a very important question indeed.
Okay, so now let's talk about what you learned. So let's talk first about gaining muscle. Is it possible to gain muscle, appreciable muscle, the same type of muscle if you're eating a high protein, high carb, low fat diet, which is a typical bodybuilding diet, on a strict keto diet?
For sure, you can gain muscle on the ketogenic diet. So I can take you through the findings, what we found when we looked at the literature. Now, we don't have a ton of studies on bodybuilders, so that's a bit of a challenge. But what we do have is studies on people that are similar to bodybuilders. For example, Paoli has a study from gymnasts from 2012. And gymnasts, they have to be very low body fat, and they have to be strong as hell, and they have a lot of muscle mass. So they're very similar to bodybuilders. So we looked at, for example, the gymnast, and we compare. Okay, how does this work for bodybuilders? It's a comparison. So the gymnasts, in general, we found that gymnasts and powerlifters, they can maintain muscle mass on the diet, but we see no strong evidence that it's very easy to build a lot of muscle on the diet. Now, there's a difference between like optimal building and being able to build and optimal building. So to build optimally, you need like a caloric surplus, right? So you need to eat more. You need to eat more calories than what you usually do. What we found in several studies is that they told powerlifters and other populations, you should eat more on the ketogenic diet, right? We want you to gain muscle mass. What happened is that the ketogenic diet is very good at reducing hunger, right? So you feel less hungry and you eat fewer calories. Less. Exactly. So that's the challenge, right? Because on one hand, it's a great tool for like fat loss, but it's not so good. You need to be hungry when you want to bulk. Like in the off season, bodybuilders, they need to bulk, they need to eat more, they need to pack on mass, and that was that seems to be a bit of a challenge, which is why we recommended in the paper that for off-season bulking, ketogenic diet is generally you can experiment with it and try it out, but there is no evidence that it's like optimal for building a lot of muscle mass because of the hunger reducing effect. It will be harder for you to eat.
I have a solution for that. Anybody listening to the show right now, if you do want to build mass on the keto diet, and gastric emptying, which affects satiety, is standing in your way from eating 6 or 7 meals. Because let's face it, if you're eating high fat, we're talking about the most calorically dense macronutrient in the world. But if you can only eat 2 or 3 times a day, you're not going to put on any muscle. Well, here's what you do. You get some GHRP6 and you do about 150 micrograms, 15 to 20 minutes before you want to eat, and you will be able to eat again in 3 hours, because GHRP6 is a powerful gastric prokinetic. It actually speeds up digestive motility, and it speeds up the efficiency of the body to extract nutrients from your food. So it's like if there was a switch and your stomach and intestines ran on normal and you could switch it to high, that's what GHRP6 does. So if you use GHRP6 on the keto diet, I predict you'll be able to bulk, because you'll still be able to eat 5 or 6 very, very nutrient dense meals, and you'll digest all the food, and you'll probably poop a log at the end of the day or the next morning, but it'll work. It works. I guarantee you it works. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sure. So I think that sounds interesting. Maybe we should do a review on that as well to see how it affects, if there are maybe studies on gaining muscle mass while taking that supplement. Also, I want to say that so this research, it does not mean that you can't gain muscle mass on a ketogenic diet, because it's at averages, right? It looks at a group of people and looks at the average. Now you will have people that individuals are not averages, right? So for example, a very good example of somebody who's a great bodybuilder on the ketogenic diet is Luis Villasenor. He's the keto gains, sort of the head of keto gains, along with Tyler Cartwright. And Luis shows us that it's quite possible to be able to be a bodybuilder on the ketogenic diet. So you have to differentiate between what's going to probably work on average and what's going to work for individuals. So that's
right. Because there were people in those study groups that put on a lot of muscle. There were people in those study groups that put on or lost muscle, and we're saying, oh, here is the middle. But we shouldn't pay attention to the middle. We should have just said, how many people put on a lot of muscle and what was a lot of muscle? And we should have just looked at that group, in my opinion. But go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm not a researcher.
Sure. I think that's a good point, because what you need to do is to look at the people who did gain a lot of muscle and see what characterizes those people. And in every study, there's going to be responders and non-responders. So basically, a responder is somebody who responds very well to whatever they're doing. And a non-responder is somebody who responds very poorly to what's going on. So for example, it's possible that you're a responder to one diet, but you're a non-responder to a different diet. So, but that's like, that's a lot of scientific, I don't want to get into the weeds of the scientific non-responders and responders, but it's interesting to know that
there's always outliers. There's always outliers.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
So from a gaining muscle standpoint, if we agree that while we were looking at the average, that there were people who gained muscle in all of these groups, and had we known what that muscle gain was and just focused on them for a moment, we could say that gaining muscle on a ketogenic diet is possible with certain conditions. Now, we don't know what those conditions are at this point in time, but we know that you can gain. Now, if no one gained muscle, if there was one group just maintained muscle and the rest of them lost muscle, then we say, no, there's no way to gain muscle. But because some people were able to gain muscle, then we need to know, we have to understand the conditions that led to their muscle gains on this diet.
Absolutely. And so it's very hard to say, because, it could be something, maybe they trained harder, or maybe they had some genetic predispositions. I can't, it would be like speculative for me to try to figure out what exactly the reasons were, but it's possible. And, but what we conclude is from the averages, it's that it's suboptimal, that it's, per the research today, there is no strong reason to believe that you will pack on a ton of muscle with the ketogenic diet.
Right, because if you do a traditional bodybuilding diet, which is high protein, moderate carbohydrates, and low fat, we know that everybody puts on muscle. Then it becomes an issue of how much muscle do they put on. So I agree with that. What about leanness? Obviously, bodybuilders during bulk season want to put on as much fat-free mass as possible. And they often end up having to spend 12, 16, 20 weeks leaning out, which then they give up a lot of muscle. Is there a, to steal the term you just used, does the ketogenic diet lean towards producing lean gains where you don't have to diet for 16 weeks to step on stage?
Right. So you're talking about like body recomposition, where you can lose fat and gain muscle at the same time. Now, this is a very interesting concept, because a lot of people, for a long time, people have said this is not possible. You cannot do both at the same time. You need to be either bulking or you need to be only cutting. But again, we have reviewed this literature, and there is, I believe, at least 20 studies that show both untrained and trained lifters can lose fat and build muscle mass at the same time. So in terms of losing fat, the ketogenic diet is it's great, because for the first point is that it reduces hunger, right? So you reduce hunger, you don't have to count calories, you just naturally eat less. That's perhaps like one of the strongest benefits of the ketogenic diet that we've seen. So for both for bodybuilders and for regular people, you don't have to count calories. You will naturally feel less hungry. That's very good. And also in terms of fat loss, it's when you eat less, you reduce calories and you lose fat. So it's we definitely recommend that in terms of the in-season phase for bodybuilders when they go into the competition preparation. And definitely, if you use the ketogenic diet, you can also use that to become lean, to reduce fat mass.
So here's an interesting comment by Lewis.
Yes.
And as we've established, he's a successful bodybuilder using the keto diet. And he says something that I'm a firm believer. In fact, it pisses me off when people classify the keto diet as only this way. My attitude is, if you eat 2 packets of salt a day and nothing else, or 2 packets of sugar a day and nothing else, and you produce ketones, that's a keto diet. Any diet that leads to the production of ketones is a keto diet. But for some reason, we've ended up with this, just like politics and religion and everything else, these staunch groups. No, you've got to eat 80% fat. And that's a high fat diet. That's not a keto diet, because you could be in ketosis on a high protein diet. But he says here, as you can see, more so the issue with keto when speaking about bodybuilding is that people apply keto very differently. Number one, people undereat protein. I believe that because keto. Number two, people overly restrict carbs and you can stay ketogenic at 30 to 40, 80 grams of carbs a day. And that's what Dr. Di Pasquale in his original book was 60 grams of carbs during the week or less. And then you can have carb refeeds on the weekend. More people, and then he also says, also add them around training, targeted ketogenic diets. I love, there's a sugar that I love that Josh Field turned me on to. It's called cyclic dextrin. You take it right before training and it burns up during your training, and you're back in ketosis an hour after you've trained, even though you had 60 grams of sugar. So I'm a big believer in that. It's total amount of calories, protein, that matters most. I agree. And he goes on to say this. Let's just get this in. I do agree. Keto is not the one that will give you the best muscular gains, but it's a great compromise for lean bulking or lean gaining. It's also a great tool for recreational bodybuilders, basically people who are not going to step on stage, but just want to improve their physiques and look like they could step on stage. I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. What do you think?
I think he makes a great point about the protein, because again, from what I can read online, a lot of people seem to be afraid of protein on the ketogenic diet, in that they're worried that it will prevent ketosis or something. But when we look at the data, we have, I believe, 14 studies where people eat a high protein diet and they're in ketosis. So it's you can eat as much protein as you want. It won't prevent ketosis.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. So people are under the impression that gluconeogenesis is something that just happens like that. Gluconeogenesis is a very metabolically expensive process, and it's only used generally during famine and starvation. So this idea that, oh, you had a big steak and now it's going to kick you out of ketosis is silly. First of all, gluconeogenesis does not just turn on like that. It's metabolically expensive, so the body has to work harder to produce glucose from that steak than it normally would. But more importantly, the body's not going to produce blood sugar that's going to range to 200. It's going to produce just what it needs and nothing more than that. The brain is telling it, okay, I'm happy now, you can stop. So we have to get people to stop this nonsense that gluconeogenesis is going to kick them out of ketosis because they're eating too much protein.
Definitely. I think you have a very good point there. Like, it's one of those things that when you look at the theory behind it, like, okay, gluconeogenesis will increase, and therefore, it will affect your insulin, it will affect your ketone production. But if you actually look at the data, that's not the case at all. So I'm definitely with you on that you don't have to worry at all about protein.
Well, and let's address this. So Jasu Fevrier says, Was the protein worry more about whey protein rather than protein derived from whole foods like steak and chicken? This one is something that I am willing to understand better as well. If you're using a whey isolate, we know that it hits the bloodstream very quickly. But first, there must be a demand for glucose. In other words, the body's not going to turn leucine and glycine, these highly glucogenic amino acids, into sugar just because. The body has to say, turn on gluconeogenesis, we're in trouble. So I think that's subjective to where your blood sugar is at the moment. What do you think?
This has actually been tested in studies. There are multiple studies where they give participants protein, like protein supplements, whey protein shakes, alongside their ketogenic diet, and they're still in ketosis. So if somebody is claiming that whey protein or any protein will kick you out of ketosis, they should. I would be very happy to see the studies, because in our very vast search, we've yet to find any studies that say it prevents ketosis.
So clearly, when it comes to building lean muscle, the ketogenic diet does have an advantage over the high carbohydrate diet, correct?
Building lean muscle. So building muscle mass with less fat gain compared to...
Yes. A traditional bodybuilding diet.
This hasn't been tested as far as I know. Like,
Okay.
There's no study that tests this specifically. But it's good for losing fat, but I can't say that it's better for lean muscle gains. There's no studies on that, I believe.
I'm actually experimenting with a more traditional bodybuilding diet right now. I've been doing ultra low carbohydrate diets and intermittent fasting for a decade now. I think my body really wants a change. I can feel it. And so I just went to 5 meals and 6 meals a day, small meals, generally 30 to 45 grams of protein, generally under 20 grams of carbohydrates, and some fats. And I got to tell you, in just a few days, I feel like my energy is up, and I'm getting hungry every 2 hours too. It's amazing how quickly the body shifts when food is available all of a sudden.
So you're probably talking about it affected your hunger as well, right? Did you feel more hungry or less hungry?
More hungry. I'm hungry.
Yeah.
I wake up hungry now. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I wake up hungry.
That's one of the adaptations, right? So when you, it's also one of the reasons why you should, when you choose a level of calories, you should be careful about jumping, because if you go from 1,500 calories to 3,000, then like you say, you will be more hungry and you will be more likely to overeat. So that's something to think about, like slowly moving up and down the caloric ladder, if you will.
We're going to take our first commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about strength and the keto diet. And I already see there's a post from one of our viewers about that, so we'll put that up as well. We're talking today with Adam Sir. His website is sci-fit, SCI-fit, FIT.net. You can go there and learn more. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. I love beef. And if you love beef, listen up. I've discovered the best tasting beef in the world, and that's not an exaggeration, at Piedmontese.com. The Piedmontese breed is famous from Italy for being lean and unbelievably tender, with half the fat and calories of traditional beef. Even typically tough cuts are tender when it comes from the Piedmontese cows. And for the first time ever, Piedmontese cows are being raised here in the USA. Get 2 free 10-ounce New York strips when you purchase $50 or more at Piedmontese.com with code SHR. Go to Piedmontese.com and use code SHR today. You will never eat any other type of beef ever again. There's no denying that a low-carb, low-sugar keto lifestyle has been shown to reverse chronic inflammation and normalize insulin sensitivity. But we all want a sweet snack from time to time. Well, no matter what you're looking for, you'll find it at Perfect Keto. Bars, cookies, exogenous ketones, keto-friendly performance enhancers, it's all in one place. I love their chocolate quad ketone salts that balance all 4 minerals. And try their keto bars for unique taste satisfaction, all the while knowing you're staying in your keto lifestyle lane. Go to perfectketo.com/superhuman to save 20% off your purchase today.
Quest Nutrition makes bars, cookies, chips, and pizzas out of complete dairy-based proteins. Our products minimize net carbs and sugar without sacrificing taste. Each delicious chocolate-flavored chip, cookie chunk, and crunchy crumble is custom made to maintain Quest macros. It's time to enjoy foods that work for you, not against you. It's time to enjoy your Quest.
If there is one mineral you should be worried about not getting enough of, it's magnesium. Magnesium is the body's master mineral, powering over 300 critical reactions, including detoxification, fat metabolism, energy, and even digestion is influenced by the presence of magnesium. That's why I'm so excited to tell you about a new magnesium product I've been taking now called Magnesium Breakthrough. It's the ultimate magnesium supplement, easily the best I've ever seen or experienced. With all 7 forms of magnesium, I was able to arrange an amazing deal for my audience, and I guarantee it's the best deal available on this product. Seriously, with volume discounts combined with our custom 10% coupon code SHR10, you can save up to 40% off select packages of Magnesium Breakthrough. And I promise that this deal is only available on this specific website, magbreakthrough.com/SHR. You won't find that deal on Amazon or even on the company's own website. Go to magbreakthrough.com/SHR and use code SHR10 to save up to 40% off select packages of Magnesium Breakthrough.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it. Unlock your potential with the best cognitive enhancement and anti-aging supplements on the market. PureNootropics.net goes the extra mile for the highest quality ingredients, third-party tested to make sure you only receive the best your money can buy. There's no better choice with their money-back guarantee and free shipping. Try their best-selling DHM. Dihydromyricetin prevents hangovers and helps deliver detox after a night of drinking. Get your DHM and other nootropics and longevity supplements from PureNootropics.net, the purest supplements around.
Spit that out right now. This is the Superhuman Channel.
Welcome back. We're talking with Adam Sir from SciFit.net, SCI-FIT.net, about a recent study that his group published looking at the ketogenic diet for both bodybuilders and physique athletes. So now let's talk a little bit about strength. What happens when you are on a ketogenic diet as far as strength goes? And is there a difference between going keto and having been keto for a while?
That's a very good question. And so one of the first things that happen when you go on the ketogenic diet is that you eat fewer carbohydrates, of course, which reduces your muscle glycogen. Your muscle glycogen is your muscles stored carbohydrate that is used during training, to fuel your workouts, right? So theoretically, if you have a low muscle glycogen, then theoretically your workouts should be harder to work out. Now, what was very interesting here when we looked at the studies is that even if people eat keto and reduce their muscle glycogen, their strength does not seem to be affected. Now, strength is in most studies is measured by the 1 repetition maximum, right? So if you're doing like very high intensity training, it shouldn't have any effect on that from what we can see.
So when you say high, so 1 rep maximum stays the same, but doesn't it seem logical that perhaps the number of reps you can do at that weight may stall for a little while initially? Although, I'll ask you that question, then I'll tell you something that Dr. D. Pasquale said on my show years ago. Okay. Do you think that it would stall? I'm
yeah,
sorry. Do you
sorry.
think that
Oh,
your
yeah.
ability, like, let's say if you could do 10 reps with X weight, and then you go keto, doesn't it make sense that while you still may be strong enough to handle that weight, you maybe can't do 10 reps anymore?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that you can. It has not been tested directly in the literature, in the scientific literature. If, for example, your high repetitions, if you're doing like 20 reps or 15 reps, if that would decrease on the ketogenic diet. Now, personally, I've experienced that when I did a very low carbohydrate diet like 6 years ago. I found that in the gym, my 1 repetition maximum was good, but my 15 rep max, for isolation exercises, it was more difficult. Now, this has not been tested in studies, so we can't say for sure. But theoretically speaking, your muscle glycogen will be reduced, which could affect how much volume you can do and how many repetitions you could do. But this hasn't been shown in studies yet.
So Dr. Di Pasquale said on the show many, many years ago that on the ultra low carbohydrate type diet, whether it's high protein, high fat, or moderate both, but you're producing ketones, that muscle glycogen will be replenished in 24 hours because your body is still managing its blood sugar levels, and some of it is going to be used through the liver to create glycogen. And so that made me start to think, if in fact it's not really reducing muscle glycogen, and the only way you know this for sure is, are there studies that show muscle biopsies while on in ketosis that the glycogen is not being restored?
Yes. So in the first 6 weeks of the ketogenic diet, your muscle glycogen there's 6 studies on this, and muscle glycogen is reduced by 40 to 60%, depending on the study.
Wow.
That's very interesting, right? But there's also another study by Volek from 2016, Volek and his colleagues, right? And that shows that their muscle glycogen levels were normal for, I believe it was athletes that were endurance athletes, they had been like in ketosis for many years, and their muscle glycogen levels were normal. This indicates that with time, even though the muscle glycogen goes down the first 6, 8, 12 weeks, it might go up again over time. So that's very interesting. There's not too much data on this yet, like exactly when it shifts from going down to back up again. But it suggests that this might happen.
So there's another aspect to strength, and I don't mean 1 rep maximum, but the kind of strength where you're really applying yourself for long periods of time. And we know from research that fatigue starts in the brain and not peripherally in the muscles. And so could it be that the initial phases of the ketogenic diet are causing changes in neurochemicals? We know that serotonin. So if you take a high protein meal before you work out, leucine will block the uptake of serotonin by the brain, and serotonin is what imparts fatigue. Could there be a component of that happening when you're on the keto diet?
That's a really good question, a good insight. We haven't looked specifically at the brain chemistry and the data on that, but what we do know is that one of the side effects from the ketogenic diet during the first weeks is fatigue, and in some studies, weakness as well. That people report that they feel weaker and fatigued, for example, during workouts, but also otherwise in their daily lives. So, but this seems to go away with time, as keto flu. That's one of the symptoms of keto flu. It goes away after like 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. It depends a bit on the person.
Yeah, and Louis Villasenor just posted something that kind of summarizes what we were just saying, that it seems like once you get adapted, the glycogen starts to restore itself. And that's another reason for manipulating maybe a pre-workout nutrients, especially if you are a fan of some of these advanced carbohydrate products like cyclic dextrin, which if you take just the right amount and you have to experiment with a glucometer post-workout, you can actually dial in like a dose of maybe 40 grams, let's say, that gives you a massive charge of energy during your workout, and it's all burnt up shortly thereafter. He said, this is why I personally shifted from doing carb loads only necessary for peak weeks and shows to targeted keto diet. Going in and out of ketosis will hinder the process. Interesting. Very interesting. And he's talking about the process of replenishing glycogen, because and it makes sense from an evolutionary perspective. The body, this speaks to my comment that gluconeogenesis is a very metabolically expensive process. The body just doesn't turn it on and turn it off. The body may wait weeks and go, okay, this fool can't find carbohydrates, so we're going to have to start producing a little bit more glucose so that we can replenish and top off glycogen.
That's one of the things. I think you have a great point there, because the body, it's adapted to survive. It's not adapted to be a bodybuilder. So it will do things to maximize survival. So you have to kind of work around that, right? You have to work around your body trying to survive. The body will shed muscle. That's what happens typically when people go on a weight loss diet, they lose a lot of muscle mass as well, because the muscle mass is metabolically, it's expensive. It uses energy, right? So you want to get rid of it so you can survive. That's why you have to eat a lot of protein. You have to do resistance training and get great recovery. There's so many things you need to do to kind of fight your body's urge to just get rid of the muscles. So yeah, that's a challenge for bodybuilders specifically. Yeah.
Oguz Han says, would it be negative for the ketosis if you load carbs for a few days after some weeks of dieting? And I think that really depends on your goal. If your goal is to become adapted, it probably is a bad idea. If your goal is to go in and out of ketosis, then you may not ever be able to do anything but go in and out of ketosis, because you're going to always need those carbs.
I think, it depends on your goals, really. Like, if your goals are to be in ketosis, then you should do what you want to be in ketosis. But you can still reach other goals. You can gain muscle mass, you can fix your hunger, you can reduce fat mass while being in ketosis or outside of ketosis, or you can do something that's in the middle where you go cyclically. You reduce carbs for a period and then you increase carbs for a period. It has to be like, ketosis is not the only measure of success, which I think is very important. Like, ketosis can be important, but don't only focus on having like a certain number read on your ketone strip or whatever it is.
Yeah, and that's actually silly. Everybody is chasing who has the highest millimoles, and that really doesn't play into any of this sort of stuff. It's just like, okay. So, lastly, what about conditioning? The ability to endure. This is kind of where the keto diet excels, right? Once you're adapted, so to speak.
Once you're adapted, right? So, one of the benefits or proposed benefits of a ketogenic diet is that when your body shifts from using carbohydrates and it starts using fats and ketones instead to fuel activities. Now, these are more like slow or kind of like endurance activities, right? Because your body relies more on fat oxidation during, like, for example, a jog. It doesn't need carbohydrates. That's more like during intense exercise, like in the gym. So what we looked at in this paper is specifically like the gym and lifters and how it affects like how important carbohydrates are. Now, in terms of endurance, the evidence is somewhat mixed, because there's actually been some studies suggest that keto is better for endurance athletes. But some studies, for example, in like elite race walkers, I believe it was, they found that they spent longer walking a certain round or a certain kind of competitive round. So they spent more time. So the evidence is a bit mixed exactly, but you can definitely have high endurance on the ketogenic diet as well.
But you have to be adapted first. Really, that's what it comes down to, right? And it takes a while. Last commercial break. We're talking today with Adam Sir. His website is sci-fit.net, sci-fit.net. Go check it out. We'll be right back with more of Superhuman Radio later in the show. If you or someone you know has macular degeneration, we have an answer. Stay tuned. Do you remember those delicious toaster pastries you had when you were a kid? You know, the rectangular sugar-filled snacks? Well, guess what? Legendary Foods has just made low-carb toaster pastry. This is the first of its kind, and honestly, these things are amazing. They have 3 to 4 net carb, less than 1 gram of sugar, and 9 grams of protein. You can eat them right out of the wrapper or lightly toast them. The only question is, which flavor, strawberry or brown sugar cinnamon? They're available at eatlegendary.com and Amazon.
Planet Earth CBD offers a fast-acting transdermal patch that targets your aches and pains for the relief you need. Not only is the patch uniquely patented, but it is widely believed to provide larger quantities of available cannabinoids to the source of pain than other brands' subpar products. Effective for 24 to 48 hours. Experience next generation technology in an FDA-registered facility. This pressure-sensitive adhesive delivers rich hemp extract directly through the skin. Be it a neck ache or a headache, you can count on CBD to take off the edge. Go to planetearthcbd.com today to learn more.
You've heard me talk about the chill pill on the show and how effective it is at helping people who suffer from social anxiety, or sometimes when you just want to take the edge off to a long, stressful day. Well, listen to this story from Dylan Goutreau.
Definitely takes anxiety away, which I have a long history of having. Started out at 2 milligrams a day of Xanax. That was at 8 years old. And so I stopped using benzos 3 years ago. Extremely difficult. Yeah, so I spent about 3 years trying to find anything and everything I could that would be healthy for me to help with anxiety. Because I'm talking, full out panic attack. The chill pill was the first thing that I found that actually in the middle of a panic attack I can take, and it definitely subsides.
Go to drseeds.com. That's DRSEEDS.com. Use coupon code SHR and save 20% off your first bottle of the chill pill. Check it out. I promise this is one supplement that delivers. Whether your goal is to build muscle or burn fat, you'll find everything you need at Redcon One. Need help getting a good night's sleep? Try Fade Out, or the most popular pre-workout supplement on the market today, Total War. Sign up for their new Transformation Challenge and win $10,000, or shop for apparel that people at the gym will know that you are serious about your training. Need a testosterone booster that works? Check out Boomstick. Whatever you need, you'll find the best quality supplements on the market at Redcon One. Go to redcon1.com. That's REDCON, the number 1.com, or go to superhumanradio.net and click the Redcon One banner ad today. Chronic stress leaves us tired, distracted, and physically vulnerable. Apollo Neuro is here to help you take control. Apollo Neuro is a new wearable that trains your nervous system to be more resilient to stress. Apollo's gentle vibrations use your sense of touch to help you recover from stress, going from fight or flight to rest and digest, so you can relax, get to sleep, focus, and stay healthy. Developed by physicians and neuroscientists, Apollo Neuro has been tested in multiple clinical trials and is proven to improve heart rate variability, the key biometric of stress. Special offer for friends of Superhuman Radio. Try Apollo Neuro today and get 15% off your purchase at apolloneuro.com/superhuman. That's APOLLONEURO.com/superhuman. Over 11 million people in the U.S. have some form of retinal damage, also known as macular degeneration. This is expected to double to nearly 22 million by 2050. Artificial blue light, age, type 2 diabetes are all contributors. Doctors say there's no cure. ARMED is changing that opinion. In one clinical trial, 93% of patients had arrested or improved their condition. 54% reported lessening of glare, reduced dryness, and improved clarity and comfort. And 0% felt worse during treatment and no side effects. Take control of your macular degeneration or keep it from ever occurring. Go to wisechoicemedicine.com and get armed today.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where we use oxygen for the power of good.
Welcome back. Before we go into the wrap-up questions, which I have, typical wrap-up questions I have on every interview, Aiden Ray has a question. He says, anything on reducing the tempo of lifting sessions to govern heart rate while on keto, i.e. nix circuits, more time under tension, not move into glycolytic territory? What do you think about that?
So I don't think that's a very amazing question, but I don't think there's so much research on that. Like, there's no study that's looked at time under tension, for example, and keto, even though I would really like to see that. In terms of not moving into glycolytic territory, well, that's bound to happen if you're doing lifting. Like if you're doing strength training, like your glycolytic pathways energy system is activated. Like you can't really get around that. You have to you're using glycogen and you're using carbohydrates when you're lifting. Now, of course, if you're doing like 1 rep maxes, then you're not using that energy system as much. But in general, the question is very complex, and I don't believe there's much research on that.
What was most amazing? What surprised you the most when the study was finally published and the numbers all added up?
So I think there was many things that we thought was exceptionally interesting. It was fun to see which kind of myths were not actually factually correct. Like, for example, the protein thing, right? You can eat as much protein as you want, but before we did this review, we didn't know that. We just we assumed the opposite, which was true. We kind of expected to see that as you eat a lot of protein, you will not be able to be in ketosis, and it will not be good for bodybuilders. But you were very surprised by that. So that was a very interesting, and also, the reduced hunger of keto was very kind of surprising as well.
So it's fairly understood that being in a state of ketosis drives insulin down, correct?
Yes.
Okay, but high saturated fat meals has the ability to drive insulin up, even in the absence of carbohydrates. At least that's what we've learned from a lot of the older studies that made saturated fats bad for us.
Yeah.
So that's a kind of interesting dichotomy. If you're eating a high saturated fat meal, let's say a big Wagyu ribeye, and that should drive insulin up, but being in ketosis drives it down. And when insulin goes up, can it kick you out of ketosis? Can rising insulin kick you out of ketosis?
I believe they've tested this in some studies where they had like insulin transfusions, or they had transfusions with the sugar into the bloodstream. And so, yes, there's a relationship between insulin and ketosis. However, I think what we need to look at is from so the question is kind of from a meal to meal basis, right?
Right.
But I think it's key to look at from like a whole day or like a whole week. So yes, you will go in and out of ketosis maybe during the day. And actually, there's a great study of this. I believe it's from 2016 that shows that during the day, your ketones rise and fall. When you're sleeping, your ketones are different. Right after exercise, or during exercise, your ketones are lower because you're using them. And that doesn't mean that even though you temporarily kind of went out of ketosis, that doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's just like a response to, like you say, the things you eat or the exercise you do, or if you're sleeping. There are many things that can affect ketosis temporarily. But the most important question is, how is are you in ketosis during the day or during the week? I think that's more like a key question.
And what about ketone supplements? Are they wise for bodybuilders to use to either offset the entry to ketosis or to take as a pre-workout? Any opinion on that?
Yes, so we looked at that, and the ketone supplements, they don't seem to improve endurance performance, and they don't seem to improve strength. Well, there's not really studies on strength, but like we don't have any reason for bodybuilders in the paper. We do not recommend taking ketone supplements, because why do that when you can buy creatine, or you can buy a beta alanine, or anything, caffeine, anything that has much stronger evidence base. Ketones, in terms of going into ketosis, ketones do make you go into ketosis, but they actually prevent your body. It's called endogenous ketosis. They prevent your body from creating its own ketones. So you have to be very careful with ketone supplements, because they temporarily prevent you from making your own ketones.
Interesting comment. And Lewis, we need to get you on the show, by the way. I don't know why we haven't had you on the show already. But, to summarize what he said, the idea of, what kicks you out of ketosis, a high fat meal. And he said, it's more about how long it kicks you out of ketosis, which I think is interesting. It's like a high carb meal can kick you out of ketosis for days, he said. But, maybe some saturated fat will kick you out for raising insulin from saturated fat will actually kick you out for seconds or minutes. And so, and this is what happens with all this diet stuff. To steal a comment that my good friend Joel Green likes to use is that we too many of us talk in baby talk. This is good. That's bad. Nutrition is much more sophisticated than that. There's nuances like this. How long does it kick you out of ketosis? Maybe being kicked out of ketosis for minutes is worth it for the meal that you're having. And then he also says that, and I believe this, exogenous ketones actually blunt lipolysis. Sure, because your body doesn't have to convert fats into ketones if it's getting them from someplace else. This is something I've said for a long time. I would love people in the keto space to start distinguishing between ketosis and ketolysis. A ketone supplement doesn't put you into ketosis. It puts you into ketolysis. You're using ketones. Being in a state of ketosis means your body is making the ketones that your body is then using. So until we start to become more specific about the terminology that we use, these supplement companies are going to be able to say whatever they want. Ketolysis and ketosis are very, very different phenomenons. They work hand in hand. But if you're taking a supplement, you're in ketolysis. You're using ketones your body didn't produce.
For sure. And, researchers, they use the terms endogenous ketosis and exogenous ketosis. So endogenous ketosis is like within, and exogenous ketosis is kind of from without, from the outside. So I think you're making a great point about that for sure.
In summary, in just a couple minutes, what do you hope clinicians and other people within the keto space take away from this research paper?
I hope that this paper is like the beginning of research into bodybuilders that go on the ketogenic diet, because right now there's a severe lack of ketogenic diet for bodybuilder studies. We need to see, for example, like people asked on this show, like how does it affect time under tension? Or you asked about the repetitions, like how does it affect your 15 repetition maximum, not just your 1 repetition maximum? How does it affect your volume over the week? How much volume can you do in the gym? Like there are so many questions that we need answers for, and I really hope that clinicians, researchers can look into that. And also for coaches, you can definitely experiment with your athletes and your lifter and ask them to use the ketogenic diet, but also you have to be careful. The ketogenic diet side effects can be harmful. So if you jump on the ketogenic diet, maybe like 3 weeks before a show, you might experience a lot of negative side effects and it can mess up your show. So you need to be careful. You need to adapt, and you also need to take like fiber supplements and electrolyte supplements, because the ketogenic diet, it makes you more dehydrated and you urinate out electrolytes like salt, for example. So you have to drink more, get more fiber, and get more electrolytes. So it will prevent the negative side effects.
Yeah, exactly. All right, listen, thank you so much for taking time to come on the show. It's a fascinating paper, and I hope you do spark more research in this area, because I'm more interested in bodybuilding and ketogenic diet, because I'm not a jogger, I'm not a runner, I'm not a biker. Well, I ride a motorcycle, that kind of biker. But I want to know more about what it does for me as a weightlifter. I really do. Thank you so much for being here today, Adam.
Thanks, Carl. It was a real pleasure to be on this show with you.
Thank you. And we will get Louis Villasenor on the show. He has a lot to say, and I think it would be valuable to just interview him instead of him being commenting on the side. There's no way for me to put all of his comments up there. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about a problem that is becoming bigger and bigger in the United States, and that's macular degeneration. There's a host of reasons for it. Looking at your computer screen right now is one of those. And previously, doctors said there was nothing you could do about it except just let it get worse and suffer until you eventually went blind. That's no longer true. And from the same people that brought us an answer to cataracts, which so many people in my audience have benefited from, and their dogs, they now have a solution for macular degeneration. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Superhuman Radio. Everybody wants to feel better, be healthier and happier. If you don't sweat profusely on a regular basis, you won't feel as good as you could. Studies have shown the power of infrared sauna. Infrared penetrates 1 to 2 inches into the body. It helps those with back pain, fibromyalgia, arthritis, depression, and anxiety. Patients get relief from infrared sauna. The Good Health Sauna has been shown to be an exercise mimetic, conveying many of the same benefits as cardio. There are a lot of reasons people buy a Good Health Sauna, but the bottom line is you will be a much happier, healthier person by using the Good Health Sauna every day. You'll crave it, you'll love it, and it will be the best purchase you have ever made. Good Health Saunas provide commercial-grade saunas for in-home and commercial use, backed by the best lifetime warranty in the industry. Unmatched customer service and the best financing makes owning one easy and will fit any budget. Go to goodhealthsauna.com/superhumanradio to learn more and save 25% off. Are you still on the fence about Body Protection Complex BPC Oral from drseeds.com? Listen to Maggie Kuhn, one of the owners of the C-Bus Lifting Company gym in Columbus, Ohio.
I had been having some nagging tendon issues that weren't injuries, just things that were annoying. You know, I'm 58 years old, so just older tendon kind of issues. For us powerlifters, you know, we really don't stop training when we have just nagging issues. We just kind of keep pushing through. And I started BPC. What I noticed was I was doing some heavy tricep stuff that would have killed me before when I had an elbow problem, and I was able to do that with literally no pain at all.
Go to drseeds.com, drseeds.com. Use coupon code SHR and save 20% off your bottle of BPC Body Protection Complex today. Whether your goal is to build muscle or burn fat, you'll find everything you need at Redcon One. Need help getting a good night's sleep? Try Fade Out, or the most popular pre-workout supplement on the market today, Total War. Sign up for their new Transformation Challenge and win $10,000, or shop for apparel that people at the gym will know that you are serious about your training. Need a testosterone booster that works? Check out Boomstick. Whatever you need, you'll find the best quality supplements on the market at Redcon One. Go to redcon1.com. That's REDCON, the number 1.com, or go to superhumanradio.net and click the Redcon One banner ads today.
Quest Nutrition makes bars, cookies, chips, and pizzas out of complete dairy-based proteins. Our products minimize net carbs and sugar without sacrificing taste. Each delicious chocolate-flavored chip, cookie chunk, and crunchy crumble is custom made to maintain Quest macros. It's time to enjoy foods that work for you, not against you. It's time to enjoy your Quest.
Select Savory Snacks Original Biltong is the healthier alternative to sugar-laden beef jerky. Their sugar-free biltong is seasoned and then air-dried for up to 2 weeks, providing you with one of the most tender and flavorful meat snacks that you've ever had. They also use a fattier cut of beef, which adds to the tenderness and gives their biltong even better flavor. Select Savory Snacks Original Biltong is the perfect snack or travel companion for your busy life. Get a free bottle of Ranch-tastic seasoning with every order. Free shipping on orders of $99 or more. Get yours today at selectsavory.snacks.com/SHR. Over 11 million people in the U.S. have some form of retinal damage, also known as macular degeneration. This is expected to double to nearly 22 million by 2050. Artificial blue light, age, type 2 diabetes are all contributors. Doctors say there's no cure. ARMED is changing that opinion. In one clinical trial, 93% of patients had arrested or improved their condition. 54% reported lessening of glare, reduced dryness, and improved clarity and comfort. And 0% felt worse during treatment and no side effects. Take control of your macular degeneration or keep it from ever occurring. Go to wisechoicemedicine.com and get armed today.
You're listening to the Superhuman Channel. Don't hate us because we feel good.
Welcome back. I have the distinction of spending time with my longest running sponsor on this show, Leslie Burke. How are you, Leslie?
I'm doing fine, Carl. How are you surviving the COVID?
Nothing has changed for me except I had to stop going to the gym for a while. And really, I came to work every single day. I wear a bandana, so I kind of look like a bank robber back in the old days. But really, nothing has changed for me at all. I mean, it's frustrating not being able to go to a movie once in a while. But I'm one of those people who doesn't focus on the things I don't have or the things I want to do, and I just focus on the things that I do have and the things that I can do. And I've always been that way my whole life. So I guess it's easy to get me. It's not easy to get me rattled about stuff. So It's been good. It actually has been good.
Yeah.
And the show has thrived. We built a great audience over the COVID period because people are home.
Well, and for those of us that work from home, I think surviving it is a little easier. It's those that have to go out into the world, on a daily basis, I think, that struggle a little more and find it a little more, they come up against it,
I've written the Rome, and I want them to assign you along with Saint Teresa as the patron saint of the eyes, because you have done more for the health of people's eyes than any other person on this planet, and that's the truth. I'm being honest.
Well, I would say I've contributed to getting the information out there, but the real bees are the unsung heroes out there who really have pursued this knowledge and with very little acclaim,
Right. But no one would have ever known about Dr. Babayev and the work that he did and the results. I mean, I have so many people who regularly say to me, and I use Can-C eye drops. The guy that I used to use for the Can-C eye drop ad that we were running. Did you hear the last ad we ran? We have a guy whose cataract went away, and his eye doctor can't even find the cataract anymore because he can't see. I actually used him for the ad that we were running for the past 6 or 7 months.
Our Facebook page is hilarious because you know how you monitor your Facebook page, and we have people coming in there and saying, does this stuff really work? And we just get ready to answer, and about 5 of our customers come on there and tell them
it works.
Why it works, what it did for them, and it kind of has we have a runaway support team on our Facebook page. We can't get to the customers quick enough for some reason.
There's another problem afoot here, and it's global. I say the United States because that's where we're based, but it's global, and it's called macular degeneration. This is a damage to the retina, and there's a lot of reasons it happens, right?
Oh my gosh. And it's such a terrifying thing. You think of cataract and everybody feels like, well, if I get one, I can always go get the surgery. Macular degeneration is a whole different thing. It is such a terrifying kind of a permanent, unfixable diagnosis, even from the doctor's point of view. I mean, most eye doctors are very frustrated with the treatment options they have available. They know how limited they are. It is a common discussion at conferences. Even the treatments that they're using, the injections, just are very poor results. They can slow things down a little bit. Sometimes they exacerbate the condition. It's not a happy place to be if you're an eye doctor trying to deal with macular degeneration. Maybe just back up a little bit. Speaking of one of the unsung heroes is Dr. Sheng Zhenyi from China. He was the head of the Department of Fundus Diseases in Sun Yat-sen University. I have to look at it because I don't speak Chinese very well. But back in the late 90s, he was noticing, and what he came across was that people with macular degeneration, and he was looking at all the distinctions, and he found that for whatever reason, they seemed to have a far lower than normal production of melatonin. Their pineal gland was just not producing melatonin at levels that it should be for their ages. And he began exploring this and really found it to be a dominant factor in all the people he was testing. And so, of course, he was researching. He was the head of the Department of Fundus Disease there at the time. And he thought they should do a study, and he wanted to pursue this study. He went and found the world leading endocrinologist, Dr. Walter Pierpaoli, to help him facilitate this study and help him, more importantly, formulate the optimal melatonin formula that they could think of to really generate the results. What they learned was that the retina actually synthesizes melatonin. It doesn't produce it. The eye does not have it inherently in the eye, but the healing and repair mechanisms in the eye do not function without it. So if your pineal is not producing melatonin, your likelihood of getting some type of retinal condition, whether it's iritis, uveitis, macular degeneration, really skyrockets. And so together they, produced a study that just, blew everybody's minds. I mean, it was such a simple question. What if we could reintroduce melatonin levels? Would there possibly be a healing response in the fundus of these eyes, of these terribly damaged eyes? And it was
could it be reversed? And obviously, the first objective of this type of research is to halt the progression.
Right.
Right. That's really, and in fact, in 99% of the cases, if you just do that, you've solved a big problem because so the fundus is the back of the eye, that whole rear cup where the retina is, the fovea centralis, which is where the optic nerve comes in, and where the blood comes into the eye, actually, which is the macular region of the eye, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Okay, so
it's actually on the inside of that curve.
Yes. It's the inside of the globe, but it's the rear part. It's like the movie screen of the eye. That's the fundus.
Exactly.
And so this is an area where a lot of vision diminishes too. Now, I want to point this out. You may not have been diagnosed with frank macular degeneration, and you may be told that your crystalline lens is fine, it's clear, but you notice that your vision is getting worse. So there's not a lot of moving parts in the eye. Okay, the aperture, which is the iris, or the pupil rather, the iris is around it, lets light in. The light is refracted by the crystalline lens and then focused on the retina, and then the retina is the screen. So if you have nothing wrong with your cornea and you have nothing going bad with your crystalline lens, but your vision is diminishing, 99% of the time it's your retina. Something's going on with your retina. Lots of things can happen to the retina. So you have rods and cones that are filled with dye, rhodopsin, that actually are kind of like the old Kodachrome paper that changes color depending on the light that hits it. And that's how you perceive color, and that's taken in by the optic nerve and it's sent to the brain and it goes, that's red. Well, when colors start to get cloudier and the quality of vision starts to fade, it's your retina. So you may not have, listening to this interview, I want those of you who are listening that know people who have macular degeneration or known retinal issues, and it may be you or a friend of, but I also want people to go, it's really weird. I noticed that my vision is starting to suck. I go to the doctor says, my eye is fine, my cornea is fine. I have no cataracts. It's your retina. So listen to this from that standpoint, because stopping the retina from deteriorating could save your vision until the day you die. Okay. That's my
can be affected by eye pressure problems as well.
Yes.
Another issue that often, it's not until it gets to be really serious that you hear about it. And there's many studies, interestingly, that show that melatonin can prevent eye pressure problems as well.
Yes.
I mean, melatonin, we've been hearing about it forever, right? We've been hearing about what an anti-aging molecule it is. They don't even know if it's a hormone. They don't really know. It's really a mystery what melatonin is. It's kind of the conductor of all the other hormones. It's sort of the director, if you will, of the concert. But if you're deficient in it, everything else can fall apart. It's one of those really critical things. The problem is that, like the sublingual melatonins that you take, they give you a real quick spike and then a plummet. Those are great for medicinal purposes, like before a surgery. They actually found that they can relax someone and remove the anxiety prior to surgery. There are places for things like that. Then the time released ones are a little too long, and what they found is that the only time the retina heals and repairs itself is during that deep REM state of sleep at night. That's the only time that happens.
Which happens closer to the morning than it does when you went to bed.
Exactly.
Right.
So you have to restore the pineal, is the point of their formulation, which is why they actually have a special melatonin. They bonded it with selenium and zinc, of all things. But they also found that people who were deficient in zinc didn't produce melatonin.
Interesting.
Isn't it?
Very interesting.
Tied right together. So, and then the selenium, of course, really supports the protection of glutathione levels in the eyes and in the body.
Right.
So, again, the eyes are the window to the soul. When you start having vision problems, there's an underlying imbalance that's likely occurring. And you really want to pay attention to. In Chinese medicine, they use the eyes as the diagnostic tool for the rest of the body.
Right.
So again, for all you bodybuilders out there, and many do take melatonin already, because we know how helpful it can be when you're working out and causing muscle repair. But the time that your body heals and repairs is during the REM state of sleep at night. And as we get older, we're less and less likely to get into that state.
We wake up too early for it to occur quite often.
Exactly.
What happens? Our night is truncated. And now let's talk about the people who don't sleep at all. people who stay up all night, and
Yeah.
and you know your vision is going to suffer from that type of a lifestyle as well.
Oh my God.
But there's another culprit here that unfortunately few of us can actually get away from, and that is blue light.
Yeah.
Like when we sit in front of our computers, we look at our cell phones, that blue light has been tied to the progression of macular degeneration.
It
Now,
sure has.
well, okay, so let's connect those dots.
Yes, I know where you're going.
We wear blue blockers at night so
Uh-huh.
that it causes a spike in melatonin so that we can go to sleep on time. So when Lisa and I sit and watch television late at night, we have our blue blockers on, and I literally start getting sleepy about an hour and a half after putting them on.
Yeah.
That raises melatonin. Well, if you're not using blue blockers to look at your iPad all night long, you're blunting melatonin. Ergo, it's not the wavelength of light that's damaging your retinas. It's the effect it has on the production of melatonin.
It's both, but yes.
It is both, huh?
Your question. Yeah, it is both. But I think you know, they've done studies where they show that within 30 minutes of going into a dark room, the pineal starts producing melatonin.
Right.
You know,
Right.
It just starts cranking it out the minute you get away from the bright light. So, you know, people who take their cell phones to bed with them and they're up in the night checking things, looking at their Twitter account, you know, are not doing themselves any favor as far as anti-aging goes.
Right.
But I just, this study actually surprised Dr. Pierpaoli, you know, because Dr. Yee contacted him to help him do this. And Dr. Pierpaoli had written a book called The Melatonin Miracle. Okay. He had, you know, he's a world-renowned endocrinologist. He's helped co-author The Theory of Endocrine Medicine. It's a textbook used in medical schools around the world. I mean, this is a big guy. He lives in Switzerland. He's, you know, Italian doctor. And he himself was amazed at the level of improvement they got. Because within 3 months of taking this particular formula, and it's made from organic coffee beans. They actually extract serotonin, if you can imagine, from organic coffee beans, which is so counterintuitive. But like so many medicines, it has an opposite effect. And so that's where they get it from. And then they bond it with selenium and zinc. And within 3 months, 95%, I think it was. Let me see here, 93%.
Oh yeah, let's talk about the clinical trials real quick. So
yeah.
And I actually have it in the radio spot. Maybe we should just listen to the radio spot real quick.
Okay.
Listen to this. Listen to this. Hold on.
100 participants.
Over 11 million people in the U.S. have some form of retinal damage, also known as macular degeneration. This is expected to double to nearly 22 million by 2050. Artificial blue light, age, type 2 diabetes are all contributors. Doctors say there's no cure. ARMED is changing that opinion. In one clinical trial, 93% of patients had arrested or improved their condition. 54% reported lessening of glare, reduced dryness, and improved clarity and comfort. And 0% felt worse during treatment and no side effects. Take control of your macular degeneration or keep it from ever occurring. Go to wisechoicemedicine.com and get armed today. So there it is. That's the result of the study. The only thing I left out of that, because we didn't have enough time to do it in a spot, was that a large number of the people said they slept so much better and felt better every day.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously getting your sleep.
Causing a spike. It's not causing a spike. You don't feel groggy the next day. If you're a smaller person, you can cut the pill in half. It's just a little tiny pill. You take it, 15, half an hour before bedtime. And then from that point forward, try to disconnect from any bright lights. But you will have dreams like you haven't had in a long time.
Right.
So it's
which
very
is REM,
powerful.
which is REM sleep.
Oh, yes.
So REM is when memory consolidation occurs.
Yeah.
And the hard drive is being defragged. And that's when you dream. That's when you're dreaming, when you're in REM sleep.
Yeah.
Talk about type 2 diabetes. We know that it's a huge problem today. Literally tens of millions of people suffer from it. It is a precursor to macular degeneration, isn't it?
Oh, it absolutely is. And it's, what are we going to do? Blood sugar, it's got to be managed. And what you were talking about earlier, you just who you got off with there, the ketogenic diet. I mean, my goodness. Did you know that the carnivore diet was the diabetic diet back in the late 20s and early 30s? That's what they used to put people on Literally, they would cure diabetes, putting people on that diet. And then, of course, it got pushed aside when all the corruption happened.
When beef became bad.
Yes,
when
beef
meat became bad. Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. But blood
Nonsense.
sugar, I'm so glad you brought diabetes up, because you can do all these things right, but if your blood sugar levels are in the tank and not where they should be or even close, the damage that's being done to your vision is insurmountable.
Right. In fact, vision isn't vision. So vision is the first thing affected by type 2 diabetes. And that's why eye doctors now will tell you that you look like you have uncontrolled diabetes, because they can tell when they look in the eye with the biomicroscope, or even when they do the photo now, they do that topographical photo of the retina. They can tell you, you have diabetes. Like you need to get to the doctor. That the eye is the canary in the mine when it comes to the earliest symptoms of type 2 diabetes.
Yeah, I usually use that analogy because it's so true. And so, and we have so many wonderful tools today for managing that, and good information, finally.
Well, and the other thing
is probably the last, thing I would try to do, with so many wonderful options that are available now. But the good news is that melatonin does help the body regulate that insulin response, which I think is the point you were kind of leading up to. And then, of course, CAN-C, from a very, direct approach, has an anti-glycating effect. We actually have a triad of products on our website that are recommended for macular degeneration. That triad really can be targeted to the diabetic patient, because we have a glutathione booster in there as well, along with all of the other elements that are needed to help protect the eyes of the diabetic patient. But working out, doing the ketogenic diet as well, boy, tremendous for
well, the other thing is that most type 2 diabetics have high blood pressure. And this is a real problem. Yeah, because a lot of times what happens with the retina is the blood vessels coming into the retina, as your blood pressure rises, they actually start to push the retina off of the lower layers of the globe of the eye. And you start getting this wrinkling effect. And it'll show up in early vision. It'll show up as, like, on the periphery, you'll start seeing like this wave that's always there. You have this little wrinkle that's out here. You don't notice it a lot because it's out here. But when you start noticing it, it's already too late, because the blood vessels are starting to push the retina off of the globe of the eye. And once that happens, then it's real hard to stop it from going forward.
And what you'll hear from your doctor is that you have a macular pucker.
A pucker, exactly.
But there's interesting research on melatonin actually working as a high blood pressure management tool. It works beautifully well for that purpose. You would have to do that, of course, under the guidance of your doctor, but there is wonderful research out there, if you look for it, on how effective that can be. So at the same time, protecting and supporting the back of your eye, So, I think so many things with the eyes are interesting that we don't hear any of this information from our doctors. They aren't trained to give us this kind of information, but there are wonderful preventive things we can do. And again, and I've said this before, the eye is such an amazing healing machine. The repair rate, the cellular repair rate, the recovery rate. That's why these results were so fast in this clinical trial. And I find that to be true in so many of the studies I've researched, is that the results are not 5 years out, 3 years out. They're often 3 months out.
Yes.
This is not something you have to take indefinitely and hope you're going to see improvements in. Our customers who have macular degeneration are just over the moon. They go back to the doctor and they're saying, what's going on? When you look at those clinical studies, I don't know if you had a chance to, Carl, but the before and after pictures of the fundus in the back of the eye where you can actually see the lesions. Most doctors would look at that and say, there's no way you're going to reverse that. That's untouchable area. And within 3 to 6 months, those lesions had completely disappeared. They're healed over. You can actually, those images are just, when I saw those images, I was just blown away. You know?
So the website is wisechoicemedicine.com. The product is called Armed, ARM, little e, capital D.
Mhm.
And it comes in a 30 or 60-day supply. I forget what it was.
60-day supply. Yeah.
It comes in a 60-day supply. You take one a night before bed and give it a few months, and things will start to be noticed by you and your doctor. What are some of the early, so when you look at the eye, you know, the fovea centralis is pretty close to where the light focuses on the retina, but the macular region is it temporally or nasally? I forget what it is. Is it temporal? But it's out in the periphery. A lot of times you won't notice the macular degeneration because it's in your peripheral vision out here, and you're always focusing on here, but it starts to get blurry out here. So if you start to notice that,
they don't know they have it. They wouldn't
Right.
even know they have it for that very reason until their doctor tells them, "Oh, you've got the beginning."
Right.
So with our customers, what I find is many of them haven't even had the symptoms yet, but when they go back, they're going in for regular checkups or they're going in for the injections, and it's their doctor that's telling them how good the back of their eye is looking. You know, they are seeing, they feel like their eyes are feeling better and they're looking better, but you know, it's really their doctor giving them that verification that is really, you know, so exciting for these people.
What do doctors say about it? Do the patients go, "Well, I'm taking this drop here," and did the doctors go, "I want to know more," or do they poo-poo it?
Well, some of them tell them that, and they say, "Well, yeah, it could be." You know, they're very diplomatic.
Could be.
Yeah,
Could be.
Yeah, and I think a lot of them don't tell their doctors that they're doing anything. Because they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. I think a lot of people.
Yeah, don't use that. The FDA, that's not FDA approved. Don't use that.
Yeah, I encourage them to have the discussion, but I know a lot of older people, they feel a little overwhelmed when they go in with doing that. But having that good report from the doctor, they become lifetime customers.
Yeah. So it is CanC and Armed a good tag team for people to keep their eyes healthy?
Actually, if you're going to add CanC to the routine, we actually recommend a triad of products because most people who have macular degeneration are taking some carotenoids like lutein and zeaxanthin. And so we have a third product that actually ensures that the optimal balance of all of those peptides are maintained in the eye. CanC is very powerful and it operates almost identical to what lutein and zeaxanthin does in the eye, only more specific and more direct and more powerful. And so in order to ensure that balance, because these are all very powerful, you know, ingredients. And so we have a third product called NACC Plus that actually helps to keep the balance, if you will, the optimal balance. And it's a very inexpensive product, can be taken over an extended period at low doses. But we have a triad of all three, or just take the Armed by itself if you're dealing with macular degeneration. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. And we also have a discount code for your listeners today, Carl.
Yay! We've never had a discount code. This is so exciting. I wish I had a band to play music.
I wish you did too.
What is the discount code?
It's Good Vision. Just Good Vision. Just type that in when you place your order. There'll be a place for it there on the website. So.
And what will they get for typing out Good Vision?
10% discount on anything they purchase.
Oh, that's awesome. Is it 2 words or 1 word, Good Vision?
It's all 1 word, Good Vision.
I'm typing it out for the people who are watching.
Okay.
The TV version, the video version of this. So there we go. Let's scroll that along this. There we go. Wise Choice Medicine, a wise choice for your eyes. Get Armed for your macular degeneration today. Use code GOODVISION, get 10% off, and that's good site-wide. So you can buy anything else up there and save 10%. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Wonderful. I love my CanC. I use it every day.
Oh,
and you know, my eye has gotten so much better. My vision, I'm wearing a contact lens today. My vision has gotten so much better over the past 5 or 6 months. And I know it's the CanC. And because my cornea, my cornea was all jacked up. Yeah.
Yeah, you really had a scare there, Carl. I'm so happy that you've had such a good recovery with all the things you did. You're a shining example of, how a person can heal themselves with the right knowledge and getting the right information.
I bought a motorcycle, Leslie. At 62 years old, I decided I wanted a motorcycle again. And I couldn't have wonky vision. I was like, man, I got to do something about my vision. I got to be really diligent. I got to put the can't see in my eye every day. Now, I had a little conjunctivitis about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it's gone away. But my vision out of my right eye is so much clearer now than it was just 6 months ago. And I know it's just going to continue to get better over time.
Conjunctivitis, really? Did you use an eye wash then? Did you try to use an eye wash with that or anything? Or?
No, I know. I remember we talked about this. Really... I know. Yeah. We talked about this. Our parents used to have, I remember the little blue glass eye shape.
Yep. Yeah. It's one of the best things you can do because it really checks the bacteria load in the eye and really allows for a faster healing response. It'll clean things like that up really fast. So.
Well, listen, Leslie, I want to thank you for being here today. And I want to thank you. I really meant that sincerely when what I said about doing for the eyes, because there are lots of good information out there about eyes, but nobody gets it. And the doctors don't hear it. And they're not going to tell their patients even when they do. And you have spent your career getting this information out there and allowing people to take control of their own vision outcome. And that is an amazing thing because we can't do our own dentistry. And for a long time, we couldn't do anything about our eyes, but now we can.
Yeah.
Now we can.
The eyes are really something you can do something about, and they respond very well and very quickly. So don't be afraid to try, is what I would say.
Chad Jared did a commercial for us. You didn't know about this. I'll send it to you because you probably never heard it. But he was on dexamethasone drops, like 10 a day for 6 months, and he developed a cataract. And so he listens to the show. He bought can't see eye drops. He started using them twice a day. And now his doctor can't even find his cataract anymore. Yeah. So, people hear this, they probably think, oh, yeah, that can't be real. Yes, it's real. Don't get the cataract surgery until you try this first. You may still need the cataract surgery. You may be one of those people that just can't be helped without surgery. But don't get the cataract surgery until you've tried can't see eye drop, because you may not need the cataract surgery. And so many people, I know people who buy it for their dogs. Shih Tzus are notorious.
Even faster on dogs. Yeah.
Shih Tzus are notorious. Yeah. They're notorious. Shih Tzus are notorious for developing cataracts. I don't know. I probably have helped 500 people over the years who have used these eye drops in their dog's eyes, and their cataracts went away.
I know.
It's amazing.
Well, and with dogs, you can see it. On humans, you don't see the cataract. So it's really fun with dogs because you see that cloudy, hazy, and human eyes are different. You don't see that haze on the human eye. So with dogs, you actually watch it melting away. As Dr. Babachev, the Russian doctor, he coined the phrase melting snow. Yeah, so it shrinks from outer parameters inward on a dog's eye, and you really can see it happening before your eyes. So that's exactly what's happening in the human eye. You just can't see it disappearing from the outside anyway. You see it from the inside looking out.
Right.
Yeah.
Leslie, thank you so much. The website is wisechoicemedicine.com. Use the code Good Vision and get 10% off everything site-wide. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Carl. Have a good one.
We'll see you soon.
All right.
And then tomorrow we have a really interesting show. There is an African beef snack that I was introduced to when I was in Ireland. And it's called biltong. And I can't get enough of it now. We now have, I'm going to hold this up. We now have a biltong sponsor. He's going to be on tomorrow. If you love beef jerky, you're never going to eat beef jerky again once you try this stuff. It's more concentrated with protein. It has 0 sugar in it. It's so delicious, and it's moist. It's literally air dried for 2 weeks. Think about that, as compared to they put that beef jerky in the oven and they maybe it's done in a couple hours. This stuff is amazing. Originated in Africa, and we now have a guy here in the United States making it, and he's making it so good you'll never eat beef jerky again. Tune in tomorrow for that. Please share the show. Always share the show. We can help a lot of people if you share the show. Okay, thank you.